The laminitic horse, the dog with diabetes, or the obese cat actually all have the same problem. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. Through the lens of classical East Asian medicine, these three animals that are different species, different diagnoses, and different ways of managing those conditions, of course, they're actually all telling you the same story, because there is one underlying pattern that is driving virtually every metabolic condition that we see in animals today. And when you know how to read that pattern, you stop chasing the symptoms and you start getting to the root causes. I'm Susan Tenney, and I've been teaching 5-element acupressure to animal professionals and dedicated caregivers across North America and Europe for over 30 years. And in this framework, it is the single most powerful lens that I know for making sense of what's happening inside those metabolically challenged animals. So in this video playlist, we're going to go through all of it. I'm going to show you exactly what that pattern is, why it shows up across species, and how understanding it will completely change the way that you see and support the animals who have these conditions. But before we dive into all of that, I want to point out that we have a free PDF that goes with this playlist. It's going to have all sorts of information that supports the videos, including nice big pictures of the acupressure points that we'll be describing, as well as information about the scientific studies that show just how powerful these protocols can be. So before we dive in, just know that you have that resource just by going to the link in the bottom when you are done watching. So here's what I hear from animal professionals, from body workers and trainers to vet techs and hoof care specialists all the time. I am doing everything I can for my clients, but these animals are still struggling metabolically and in other arenas of their lives as well. And for the dedicated animal caregivers, it's even harder because they are watching the animals that they absolutely love and adore really struggle with something personal. These conditions are kind of slow and stubborn and really hard to resolve. Metabolic conditions are like that, whether it's insulin resistance and EMS in horses, or laminitis that keeps coming back, no matter how much you are managing their diet and their turnout. Or maybe you're dealing with diabetes in the dogs and cats in your care. Or maybe that creeping cognitive decline that starts looking like dementia in the senior pets. So these conditions are notoriously difficult to manage through a purely Western medical lens. There's medication, there's diet, and there's exercise, and those things matter. I want to be absolutely positively clear that when you're dealing with conditions like this, you absolutely have to include the veterinary professionals. The vets are trained to deal with these with all their incredible skills, and that is absolutely part of the team. But you, as a animal professional, maybe in other arenas of animal care, may be able to help in unexpected ways. You may be able to identify these underlying imbalances that can be addressed through classical East Asian medicine, and that will help you in not just managing the symptoms, but actually getting to the root cause. Classical East Asian medicine has a framework that is called 5-element theory. And within that framework, there is one of the elements of those 5, the earth element, that actually governs what they call transformation and transportation in the body. But what the heck is that? This means that the earth element is in charge of processing nutrients. It manages fluids with the help of some of the other organs, and it also converts the food into energy. So basically, it sounds familiar because it's digestion or metabolic function. So the earth element dysfunction is this overarching pattern that is underneath virtually every metabolic condition that we see in animals today. So horses and dogs and cats, across species, across conditions, the earth element is the similar factor, and that's where the story starts. But then it can go on to get even more interesting, because within that overarching kind of unifying earth element pattern, each species and each individual animal has its own sophisticated, nuanced story too. It has like a secondary pattern that is often layered on top of that elemental pattern from the earth element. So for example, a horse with laminitis, who, especially if it shows up in spring, might have an extra wood element component, whereas a horse that has PPID or Cushing's might be more dealing with the water element as that secondary focus. And each of the animals that we'll be talking about will have this blend of that overarching concept, as well as these little tweaks that we have to add for their unique situation. And all of that matters, because what we're going to see is that you're going to be able to go beyond a one-size-fits-all protocol that would be only looking at the earth element, and actually create something truly individualized for the animal that is in front of you. And this is what makes the elemental matrix method that we teach here at Elemental Acupressure so powerful. It really makes solutions not only customizable, but helps to actually resolve some of these situations sometimes, or at least manage them to the absolute optimum best. Now, some of you might be thinking that sounds really fascinating and I'm curious, but is there actual science behind it? And yes, I am here to tell you that there absolutely is a ton of science behind these ideas, even though they come from ancient medical practices throughout the Far East. We are absolutely now having Western medical as well as Eastern medical scientific studies that are there to support this theory. Actually, the acupoint research has exploded over the last 2 decades, and we're talking peer-reviewed studies, hundreds of them, that validate the effectiveness of acupoint stimulation on metabolic function, inflammation, insulin regulation, pain, even neurological health, and this is for humans as well as animals. So in that free PDF, which you're going to find in the description below, we are going to pull together some of the best studies that you can kind of take a look at and really see just how authentic this approach is. It works. But the short version of all of this is it's not some woo-woo off in the clouds kind of thing. This is something that is evidence-based and works beautifully alongside what the vet is doing and everything else that you are doing for these animals. So in this playlist, we're going to video by video go through all of this, condition by condition and species by species. We're going to start with this big picture, that earth element pattern, why it's so central to metabolic health and what it actually means when you're caring for animals with these conditions. We're going to go deep into the horses with laminitis and EMS and insulin resistance, PPID and Cushing's, and we're going to look at all of them briefly through the Western lens and what we understand about that part of the science, but also into how we would address these within point work and other lifestyle changes that we might make from our understanding in classical East Asian medicine. We're then going to move into the small animal world. So we'll look at canine diabetes, which actually looks quite different than the feline diabetes because they're not the same thing. We'll look at obesity and even cognitive decline, which has in recent years begun to be kind of connected to the metabolic issues that we talk about usually with like diabetes and that sort of thing. And throughout, we're going to be talking about acupuncture acupressure points and lifestyle interventions that allow the kind of protocol that really moves the needle for these animals. Now, I want to be really clear about something. We're going to have all sorts of insight and understanding, but most of the real detailed point information is going to be in that PDF guide. So you're going to want to pick that up at the end. But we will be talking about how these points can make such a difference in these animals' lives. Now, some of you may be thinking, this content is only for body workers because of the acupressure. And yes, it's going to be amazing for you body workers who are out there doing massage or any of the various hands-on techniques that you may do with horses and dogs and cats. It's easy to slip in these points and make a tremendous difference for those animals. Not just, maybe you're helping them with movement patterns or pain relief or things that are much more kind of like movement based or muscle based. You're really able with the point work to take it into a metabolic realm and really help these animals with their deep inner health, which is powerful and really, really expands your toolbox for helping your clients. But it's not only for the body workers. If you are a trainer or a hoof care professional or a vet tech or someone who works in a shelter or dog walking services or pet sitting, maybe you just do intuitive services like animal communication or Reiki. All of these positions, all of these professions are going to benefit from these ideas because these animals with these metabolic conditions are in your care already. You see them every day. You see the overweight dog. You see the horse with laminitis. Do you only want to help with the pain that laminitic horse is dealing with, or do you want to help them actually begin to shift and transform that underlying metabolic dysfunction? Do you only want to help that dog whose arthritis is flaring and it's painful for them to walk? Super good if you're using the massage to, help with pain relief. But don't you want to also come underneath and look at changing how that dog could maybe even lose more weight because you're addressing that metabolic balance? That's powerful. So even if you're not a professional at all, you're just really trying to help your own animals to feel their best. All of these situations can benefit from these approaches, from these points, and from these practices because they help animals feel better. And who doesn't want that? We all do. And this is going to make you professionals have more skills that you can offer to your clients. And it's even possible, if you're really looking out for these patterns, to get ahead of conditions before they even flare into a full condition. So there is a lot of reasons that every single person who's around animals should be knowing about these patterns and putting them into use. Now that you've had a little bit of a taste of where we are going with this video playlist, there's a couple things that I want to leave you with. First of all, make sure that you go grab that free PDF. It's in the description below. It's totally free, and it is your hands-on companion to everything that we're going to be covering, including nice big pictures of all of the points that we'll be talking about. You'll get more tips about how to actually do the acupressure in just a couple of minutes. This is not something long and drawn out and complicated. We're going to keep it super simple, but it will still be safe and effective for all the animals in your care. The other thing that I want you to do is to make sure that you are following this playlist. We're going to be dropping down a lot of videos to go through all of the different layers of this topic. And there's so much to say. I want to make sure that you don't miss anything. But here's the thing. When an animal is dealing with metabolic dysfunction, and that is all of these animals we've been talking about in this video, laminitis, diabetes, cognitive decline, Cushing's, etc. All of these animals are not living their best life. You know that. You can watch the change in their behavior and all sorts of other aspects of their life. They're not going to be running and playing and doing all of the things that they love to do to their bestest. And so we, as their caregivers, we feel that, we know that, and we want to help. This is the framework that is going to be able to give you insight and practical tools for making sure that you can help those animals, along with proper veterinary care and all of the other wonderful things that you're already doing with and for these animals. Because these animals deserve the very, very best from us. And this is part of how you go and get there. So I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in so you can really begin to understand the nuance and the detail for all of these metabolic issues in the lens of classical East Asian medicine.